Hello everyone! Tyrande Whisperwind and the Night Elves. They've been quite a subject of debate lately, so I figured it'd be a good idea to just take a step back, go back in time, and talk about her story.
No more looking to the past. It is time to embrace our future.
Before there were Night Elves, there were Dark Trolls that found their way to the Well of Eternity. Under the Well's influence, the Troll's flesh and bones were infused by its energies, elevating their forms to match their graceful spirits. The tribe's mystics began worshipping the Moon Goddess, Elune, who they believed was bound to the Well of Eternity itself. The former Trolls also discovered the name Kalimdor and other Titan-forged words from communing with Elune and investigating strange artifacts that were scattered around the Well's periphery. Influenced by this newfound language, they called themselves Kaldori, Children of the Stars, also known as the Night Elves.
Elune be praised!
The worship of Elune continued, and it became part of their culture. The Sisterhood's priestesses, they had a hand in nearly all aspects of early Night Elf civilization, from acting as spiritual leaders to help and defend their burgeoning territories from outside threats. A good thing too, as the Legion's eye fell upon Azeroth, and the world was going to need its defenders. That brings us to Tyrande, over 10,000 years ago, just at the start of the War of the Ancients, where at the time she was still an early novice to the Temple of Elune. She had shared her childhood with the twin brothers Malfurion Stormrage and Illidan Stormrage. But as we all know, time changes quite a bit. They were no longer youthful companions. The simplicities of their childhoods had given way to the complexities of adult relationships. There was a bit of a love triangle going on, with both brothers having feelings for our young priestess. It was a bit of a rivalry. Illidan especially wanted to prove himself worthy for her, while Tyrande felt flattered. She didn't want to hurt either one of them, yet at the same time she knew that one of them was going to get hurt. We'll get to that in just a moment. First we have a war to fight. Within Azshara's palace, we find the Highborn dabbling in powerful magics, exploring what they can do with their Well of Eternity. In time, they make contact with Sargeras and the Burning Legion. Xavius informed his Queen Azshara, and all of them thought that it would be a really good idea to bring Sargeras in, have him transform the world, purge it to perfection, like their queen was. Well, all the Dark Titan had wanted to do for a really long time was to destroy Azeroth. He just hadn't known the planet's location, and now that he did, he needed his way to get there. They worked on transforming the well into an epic gateway to bring over the epic power of Sargeras. A portal that powerful was gonna take some time. So first, there came some of his more powerful troops. Beings like Hakar the Houndmaster, Manarov, even Archimond, and with them, a whole bunch of the demons. As you can imagine, things took time to get ready. The darkness from the palace slowly but surely spread. The Night Elves suffered great losses in territory. But in time, resistance rose up, and some critical players within the war, they would make all the difference. Obviously, Tyrande was one of those. The teachings of Elune had their priestesses offer guidance, blessings, and healing for those in need, invoking their goddess, asking her to use them as a vessel and pass on her grace. When Tyrande left nothing but a string of successes in her wake, capable of healing even the most infectious wounds, she did not see this as anything special that came out of her. The thanks should always be given to their Mother Moon, but healing is not the only thing that they do. There's also the fighting aspect, the aspects of the Night Warrior. She who takes the courageous dead from the field and sets them riding across the evening sky as stars for their rewards. More than once, Tyrande found herself at the front of battle, covered in blood, slicing away at the demons, while trying to defend their home.
At them, my sisters! For Kalimdor!
Now going over the entire War of the Ancients and all the characters that played a part, it would take quite a bit of time. So we're going to focus on the major events that happened with Tyrande. She came across a young Night Elf female named Chandris Feathermoon, 2, maybe 3 years away from being able to enter into the service of Elune herself. The child sat in miserable silence, staring at nothing, so Tyrande approached her. She offered her water, comfort, and a listening ear. Chandris told her that she had come from Arahinam, a place that was overrun by the demons. Her family might still be alive, but then again, they might not. Night Elves, while hardly weak, they were ill-prepared for life outside of their cushioned worlds, a failing only now becoming evident. Tyrande gave thanks to Elune that she, Malfurion and Illidan had been raised differently. but they were in the minority. There were so many in the same situation that Chandris suffered, but something about the child especially, it touched the priestess. Perhaps it was that she somewhat resembled Tyrande, in face and form at that age. Whatever the case might be, Tyrande told her to come with her, a meeting that would change both their lives forever, as from that point on, Chandris would hardly ever leave her side, and Tyrande, in time, would become her adoptive mother. Then the high priestess of the temple fell in battle, and despite being a novice, it was Tyrande that was appointed to be her follow-up. At first, she couldn't believe it. How could she, with so little experience, take on the mantle, when there are so many more who know the temple better, but none of them were so attuned to her lunar self, and they had all seen it. There were already stories going around about the miracles she had performed. People healed where others had failed, an unbroken string of successes. Without realizing it, Tyrande had even aided several whom other sisters had failed to heal, and then she just continued on while all of them expected her to be unable to stand. Again, to Whisperwind, she was nothing special. All she did was pray to Elune, and Elune would answer her call. She would be grateful, and then move on in the hopes of healing someone else. But according to the others, she had done much, much more. And so, she accepted the new position. But there would be no fancy rituals or fancy clothes. There would be no special treatment when all of them carried Elune in their hearts. Tyrande had joined the order for one thing most of all, to help others through the gifts of Elune, and she would continue doing that work until she became a prime target. You see, earlier on, Malfurion had managed to delay the efforts of summoning in the Legion, and in the process, he had also slain Xavius. The spirit of the Highborn was then taken by Sargeras, molded and transformed until only the finest bits that pleased him remained. It was the first of the Satyr, sent back through the portal to fulfill the Dark Titan's mission, and in order to claim sweet revenge, Xavius set his sights on the two that Malfurion cared for most, Illidan and Tyrande. His twin brother was already drifting away, losing the battle for Tyrande's heart to Malfurion. A battle that the druids didn't even fully understand that they were having. Then for the priestess, Xavius decided to kidnap her, take her back to the palace, but going after the one that Malfurion loved most, it might have been the best idea. Chandris first shot Xavius with a couple of arrows, and then Malfurion used his druidic skills to turn Xavius into a freaking tree. I'm never gonna get over that awesome display of power, yet all the same, Whisperwind was still taken away, and in his despair, Malfurion gave the Legion army a taste of the true potential that he held within. Not the first time that Tyrande helped him push beyond his limits, and it wouldn't be the last. This time, in his despair, he accidentally called upon such a massive storm that both sides were temporarily separated. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, mirroring his turbulent but darkening mood. Nothing was of importance without Tyrande. He knew that now, for what little good it did him. The wind howled, mourning his loss. Tornado-strength gales battered everything but the distraught night elf, until finally a voice it managed to cut through his despair and snap him back to his senses. There was still a chance to save Tyrande, but that meant keeping a cool head and using those awesome powers to turn the battle to their favor. Meanwhile, his twin brother Illidan realized what's up. He realizes that Tyrande's heart, it desires Malfurion and not him. Believing that he could win this war all on his own, he then rides out to the palace to sign up with Sargeras. As a double agent, of course, but when you're keeping your plans a secret to everybody, it means that his people, they would soon enough view him as the betrayer. As for Tyrande, she woke up to a nightmare, firmly in the grasp of the enemy. Not completely alone though, as a faint aura, the color of moonlight, had draped around Elune's acolytes. They had wanted to torture her, they wanted to bend her to their will, but not even the might of the great Archimand was able to penetrate Elune's defenses. That didn't mean they couldn't still use her as a trump card against Malfurion. And while Elune kept her safe from physical harm, the words of Queen Azshara herself, they still cut deeply. You need to understand that the Queen was beloved by her people. There was a bit of magic involved in that department, but still, despite knowing that Azshara had betrayed them all, Tyrande still wished to kneel before her, and had done so if the bonds didn't keep her in place. She was offered a position at court as one of Azshara's handmaidens, something that Vash was not really happy with. Her feline eyes were filled with murder, intensely jealous of Tyrande, but the newly appointed High Priestess refused the offer. She was sworn to Mother Moon. Her life and her heart belonged to the goddess. The queen's beauty was suddenly marred by a brief look of pure evil. Ungrateful little trollop. And such a liar too. Your hearts, you actually give rather easily, don't you? First to one brother, then another brother. Are there other besides? The queen's words dug deep, complimenting Tyrande on her excellent work at pitching Malfurion and Illidan against each other. A tear escaped Tyrande's eyes, but Azshara felt no sympathy. They were already working on what they believed was turning Illidan into a full-blown ally, and soon enough, they would get their hands on Malfurion as well. You really should reconsider whether to be my handmaiden, dear girl. You could have had both of them alive and yours to play with. After I'd grown tired of them, of course.
Such insolence.
But the queen, offering her such a position, it did not sit right with Vush. So soon enough, she showed up at the prison, pretending to be Tyrande's salvation. She offered her a way out of her bonds and away from the demons. The Priestess of Elune believed her words, prayed to her goddess that things were alright now, thanking Elune for the protection, but assuring her that this was now for the best. At first, however, it seemed Elune paid her no mind, for she felt the protective spell remained fixed. Eyes shut, Tyrande tried again. Surely the Mother Moon understood that now the very gift she had bestowed upon her servants, it risked the Priestess. And at last, Elune's presence began to recede, and a sense of imminent threat overwhelmed Tyrande. Vush was absolutely mental. Tried to slice her throat, scratch her eyes out, end what was a threat in her eyes, something that come between her and a beloved queen. Only the reflexes of years of training is all that saved Tyrande. But before she could get past Vush and escape, make use of the opportunity, Maiden restored the magical bonds that kept her in place. Perhaps getting to Tyrande was not going to be possible, so best to spend her time whispering to Azshara that Tyrande could not be trusted.
Did you know this Tyrande Whisperwind in life?
I know she is hard to kill.
Then, again, a little while later, another visitor to her cage. This time, a Highborn by the name of Duframar Sunstrider. He offered to feed her, and while the Mother Moon had sustained her for a very long time, she could only do so much. There was so much need for Elune throughout all of Kalimdor that she couldn't just concentrate on just a mere priestess. Tyrande felt no betrayal for this, only thanks for all that Elune had already done. But after dealing with Vush, she was a little bit hesitant to trust Duframar. But soon enough, she figured out that he might be her chance, an opportunity to escape. Using her position, she coaxed him into talking while he fed her a meal. The Highborn was obviously not down with what's going on at the palace, but his devotion to Azshara was still absolute. As the war progressed, that too changed, realizing that their queen had gone mad, that the demons, the legion, that they were not the way forward. Duframar decided to release the High Priestess, and together with others who shared the same mindset, they escaped the palace. Tyrande would speak on their behalf, make sure that the rest of the people understood their impossible position. But before they could make a clean escape, she was dragged up by a Doomguard, and after slicing him down, the hard earth down below, it quickly approached. She might have broken all of her bones, ending her life in that moment. Was it not for the betrayer, Illidan Stormrage, who saved her life?
Malfurion!
Hush, Tyrande. Where is Illidan?
By the very edge.
Brother, a timely arrival. Illidan! The well is out of control! Aye. It's been twisted and turned by too many spells. The fuss we, especially you, made with the portal was too much. The same spell that sent the Burning Legion back into their foul realm now works on the well. It's devouring itself and taking its surroundings with it. Fascinating, isn't it?
Not if we're caught up in it. Why weren't you running? What have you been doing with your hand in the well?
At the conclusion of the war, the Night Elf resistance was able to revert the portal, send the Legion back to where they came from. Ajara, Vush, and Xavius, they were dragged beneath the waves, where a new power and a new destiny awaited. Victory for the elves, it did not come without great sacrifice and loss of life. Not without great changes, as the Well of Eternity had imploded, the land of Kalimdor had sundered apart. The Night Elves now found themselves approaching a brand new, uncertain future. One in which Illidan was certain that the Legion would come back. Using vials that he had filled with the waters from the original well, he decided to make them a brand new one at Mount Hyjal. Their people had to prepare. They needed the power to be able to stand up against Sargeras. Obviously, after just fighting a massive war because of the original well, these people were not exactly happy with Illidan the Betrayer. No, rather than ending his life on the spot, they decided to imprison him. That still left them with a massive magical fount of power that was sure to draw the Liege's attention once again. It was the dragon aspects that came up with a solution. They decided to plant a massive world tree over the well, which was called Nordrasil, and upon it they placed their blessings. Alexstrasza the Red granted the elves strength and vitality. Nosdormu the Bronze gave the blessings of immortality, meaning immunity to sickness, disease, and aging. And in Ysera the Green, she offered them easier access into her domain, the Emerald Dream, a domain that Malfurion had already began walking, but more of their people would follow in his footsteps of Druidism. As the centuries passed, the burgeoning Night Elf society, it expanded into the dense forest of Ashenvale, south of Mount Hyjal. Tyrande, as still being the High Priestess, she was the one to lead them in rebuilding their society. Her order was uniquely positioned to fill that power vacuum, positioned them as leaders of both their government and the military. For the Sisterhood, it had emerged from the War of the Ancients relatively unscathed. She also forged a brand new fighting force called the Sentinels, composed of devout and highly trained warrior women. This order dedicated itself to protecting what they were building. The Sentinels, they set out to patrol their misty forest home, befriending the native creatures of the land, and standing guard against any kind of threats. Meanwhile, Malfurion continued fostering a culture of druidism amongst their people, since, they gave up arcane magic for a while, which some amongst their people were simply unable to do. People like Duframar Sunstrider and others like him, they felt like this magic was their ancient birthright, and they saw no reason, if they were careful about it, saw no reason to give it up. There were so many of them that execution was just not the right call. So instead, they were exiled from the Elven lands, which led to the eventual creation of the Sunwell, the formation of Quel'Thalas, the High Elves, but that's a whole different story. Others that were able to let go, they embraced Malfurion's teachings and devoted themselves to living in harmony with nature. The Druids often took very long naps, walking Ysera's domain, the Emerald Dream. This aloofness, it frustrated Tyrande and her Sentinels. Though they often sought the Druids' help to safeguard their lands, few of Malfurion's followers were ever awake to answer the call.
You've changed, Tyrande. There is little mercy left in you.
Long ago I swore to protect this land, Furion. I never had the luxury of sleeping through times of great peril.
That didn't mean Tyrande stood alone though, while leading their people. Not only was she still favored by Elune, at her side, there was also still Chandris, and as the Sentinels were formed, she rose up and was named captain of the fledgling order. And so, we got Tyrande leading the Night Elves on Azeroth, Malfurion and the Druids that are upholding the balance of nature and healing the lands. Their combined efforts resulted in a long-sought period of peace and tranquility. Life in the forest and thickets of Hyjal thrived, while the mantle of leadership was definitely demanding. Tyrande enjoyed it, yet despite the hope and optimism that blossomed amongst the Night Elves, Tyrande could not shake the feeling that dire times were ahead. Illidan's words seemingly made an impact. They might have banished the Burning Legion, but they had not killed Sargeras. Tyrande believed with all her heart that the fallen Titan was somewhere out in the darkness between the stars, plotting his next attack. Perhaps it was only a matter of time before Sargeras renewed his burning crusade to decimate all life. And if that day did come, Tyrande hoped that she and her people would be ready for it.
Archimonde, after 10,000 years, how is it possible?
But that and so much more is a story for another day. So for now, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos. Leave a like if you enjoyed this one. And until next time, see ya!